The wall takes longer than you want. Concrete always does. You've drilled holes before, houses, storefronts, warehouses, but this one is thick, reinforced. Someone expected pressure here. Someone planned for weight. The drill screams, then dulls. Dust coats your hands, your sleeves, and your teeth. You switch bits. Someone checks the time. Someone else watches the road. And no one panics, because this isn't a burglary. It's an operation. When the slab finally gives way, the opening is just wide enough, one body at a time. Inside, the space is enormous, silent, stacked floor to ceiling with sacks and pallets, each one stamped, logged, and numbered. You don't celebrate yet, you count. Outside, the truck's idle, not one, not two, but several. You don't steal this much by accident. You're listening to True Crime Culinary. I'm your host, Leah Jack. Let's sink our teeth into this story. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of True Crime Culinary. I am recording this ahead of time, so Happy New Year, but also this is coming out, I think, mid-January, at which point I will be on another continent, hopefully looking either at the pyramids in Egypt or at like a leopard or something. So I'm really hoping that's true. I'm going on my honeymoon and didn't want you to miss out on the amazing historical factoids that True Crime Culinary brings you. And this is another episode that is rooted in a conversation I had with a friend we were just kind of talking and suddenly it was like, why are those served on an airplane? And the story that I was opening with, I will continue here. On January 20th, 2022, Israeli authorities announced one of the largest agricultural thefts in the country's history. Sometime in the weeks prior, thieves broke through a concrete wall of a storage facility in southern Israel and removed roughly 100 tons of peanuts. The estimated value is over $500,000, and it took heavy equipment, multiple trucks, lots of time, and planning. Yeah, this wasn't a late night smash and grab. This wasn't desperation. This was major logistics. At first, reports struggled to explain why anyone would go to this effort for peanuts, but the quantity mattered, and so did the actual choice of product. Here's the thing, you don't move that much weight unless the product can survive it. Whatever was taken had to be shelf-stable, non-perishable, compact for its calorie value, and easy to resell, repurpose, or process. I think that's called laundering, but anyway. It had to blend in once it left the warehouse. So no serial numbers, no alarms, no smell that screams theft, and critically, it had to be something that doesn't look like money at first glance, which is why early headlines sounded confused. Why this? Why now? Why this much? As the investigation unfolded, authorities arrested suspects from nearby Bedouin communities. That detail matters not as a shorthand for crime, but for context. Many Bedouin families in the region have long histories tied to agriculture, herding, informal trade networks, storage and transport of bulk goods. And this is because they live in the desert and they're known for a more nomadic lifestyle. So this knowledge is built over generations, how food moves, how long it lasts, how it can be divided, fed to animals, sold, pressed, or stored. That background doesn't exactly explain guilt, but it does explain capability. This wasn't about grabbing something flashy, it was about taking something convertible. So here's where the story sharpens. The stolen goods weren't electronics, they weren't fuel, they weren't metals, they were peanuts, not snack bags, not candy jars, but raw bulk agricultural peanuts. Cheap, individually, powerful at scale. So first things first, peanuts aren't nuts. They're legumes, closer to beans and lentils. They've been cultivated for a very long time. Archaeological evidence places domesticated peanuts in what's now southern Peru and Bolivia as early as 3000 BCE. That's more than 5,000 years ago. Indigenous farmers didn't gather them, they bred them, selecting for size, yield, and reliability. This is a super common theme in all of my research on kind of like older foods like corn, which was talked about in the stalks, or basically anything from before now. It's like you have these people 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago who I'm so amazed at how they tapped into kind of intuitively understanding something and breeding towards it before any type of more practical science came. And so I just think it's really cool, especially because peanuts are super unusual plants. I didn't know this about them, but they flower above ground, then they bend downward, pushing their pods into the soil to grow. So they bury their future, and they fix nitrogen back into depleted earth. They tolerate drought, and they forgive bad seasons. Ancient farmers noticed that. In Andean cultures, peanuts appear in burial sites, sometimes whole, sometimes shaped, placed near the dead alongside other travel foods. Archaeologists believe they were meant to sustain people on a journey. This wasn't casual food, it was planning food. Food you grew because you expected scarcity. Food you trusted to be there later. Peanuts didn't stay local for long. In the early 1500s, Spanish and Portuguese colonizers carried them across oceans, packed dried into sacks and crates alongside other durable crops. By the late 1500s, peanuts arrived in West Africa, and they made immediate sense. They thrived in similar climates, they restored depleted soil because of the nitrogen, they produced reliable calories when other crops failed. They become ground into pastes, simmered into stews, stretched to feed many people from one pot. Some example dishes that still exist today: ground nut stew, I hope I pronounced this correctly, mafe, M-A-A-F-E, and then peanut-based sauces across West and Central Africa. Then peanuts crossed the Atlantic again through the transatlantic slave trade. I'm going to say that one more time. Through the transatlantic slave trade. By the 1700s, enslaved Africans were growing peanuts in small plots in American South, bringing with them knowledge of when to plant, how to process, how to make them last. Peanuts thickened stews, they filled stomachs, and they stretched meals. They shaped Southern food quietly and invisibly, and they weren't credited. By the 1800s, peanuts were everywhere in the South, but still dismissed as poor people's food. It just occurred to me that I believe the derogatory phrase, the peanut gallery, is related to this. So, after the Civil War, cotton farming had stripped Southern soil of nutrients, and farmers needed a crop that could restore the land, and peanuts were the answer. By the late 19th century, agricultural programs promoted peanut rotation. At the Tuskegee Institute, George Washington Carver taught farmers how to grow peanuts sustainably and use them for food, oil, soap, and fertilizer. So, peanuts became industrial, packaged, and branded. By World War I, they were marketed as affordable protein. By World War II, they were part of ration plans and school lunches. Peanuts were invisible because they were everywhere, and this is why the heist worked. Peanuts are easy to move, shelf-stable, hard to trace once processed, rarely questioned if paperwork looks right. I just love the idea that there's like peanut paperwork. Once they leave the warehouse, they stop being peanuts. They become oil, feed, paste, which is why when authorities recovered only half of the stolen peanuts, no one was surprised. The rest had already disappeared into the system because this wasn't about what's inside the bags, it's what they would become. And the question my friend and I were talking about is, why are peanuts always given in airplanes? And the answer is because they're easy to transport, like all the things that we learned about. They can be given in small quantities, they're calorie dense. You know, when you're thinking about cranky people on an airplane, you're like, where can I maximize calorie density? Peanuts. So that is a little bit of something I didn't know, and I will be looking out for them on my upcoming flights to see what kind of peanuts they give. Thanks for listening to another episode of True Crime Culinary. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about peanuts. If you have a story you want me to look into, please don't hesitate to email me at truecrimeculinary@gmail.com. You may address the email to Leah, and I will happily do an episode. I love getting requests on my bread making channel on TikTok. I love it when people ask me questions. Until next time, stay curious and be careful what's in your cup. Check out our show notes for sources, hit that subscribe button, rate and review the podcast anywhere you listen.